everyone, welcome back to my storytelling channel. Hua here to continue chapter 2 of My Enemy's Daughter for you. I invite you to sit back, relax, and let's find out what happens next.
Red eyes, strobe lights moving across the walls. You're looking like a movie star, but I don't know just what you are. Seems like you're type to be on the floor. You're looking for a kind of queen, the baddest one you've ever seen. You're shining bright as crystal, moving like a twister. Ooh, I'm swaying to the hits, boy, loving every disco.
The dungeon hall was oddly quiet, and Hayden found it to be dangerous. When halls such as this held silence, something else was brewing, and his senses should be twice heightened. The wedding celebration last night was quite a shock to him, as the bride was young enough to be the Duke's granddaughter. What was the father of the bride thinking when he struck the marriage contract? He could tell that the bride was not fond of her position as the new duchess, and one look could tell any onlooker the sadness she was fighting against. He felt sorry for her, but then again, she was still his enemy. The prized kill he had went after had been placed by the main table in the dining hall, and everyone had enjoyed admiring it. If only he had been in his own city, he would have worn the skin of the tiger on his back. The door to his cell opened, and the physician came in bearing his briefcase of medicine. Now that he was wide awake watching the man, he did notice how the physician held his head down and kept his mouth quiet. Was the man really deaf? Or was it an act to keep the prisoners from trying to get help? The man applied the necessary medicines, and then left as quietly as he came. Brack came in shortly after that, and removed his chains. "Am I to be held prisoner here?" Hayden asked. "What crime have I committed?" Brack smiled, and he dropped the chains off to the ground. "I have sent a messenger to Ipeka in regards to who you are." This surprised Hayden, and he held his breath. He wasn't expecting this, and now he was afraid the truth of who he was would be found out. "And?" Hayden asked. Brack removed his sword and placed it on the table. "I was given word about a certain thief who had fled Ipeka and was making his way toward Silion. I wonder if this thief and the man who stands before me are the same." Smiling, Hayden replied, "What name were you given?" "No name, but a traveling hunter, which so happens to be what you claim to be." The story, however, doesn't add up to a certain point. You see, the messenger who inquired about this traveler was told that the man who left Ipeka was moving along with the wife and child. You were found alone. Does a wife and child wait for you at home? You keep me prisoner and dare to ask me to such private questions. What charges are you bringing toward my head? First state that, and if I feel safe, I shall answer what you seek." Brack nodded in understanding, and then he replied, "A man of honor you are. Tongue speaks such glory, and judging by the shape you are in, I might even say you are the warrior I need. What if I were to offer you a home here in Zion? A place for your wife and child and for you to live and thrive. In return, you train with my men and prepare them to take out Silion." Heat ran in Hayden's veins at the offer Brack gave him. He forced the anger down his throat and instead offered a smile. "My lord, you honor me with such a glorious offer, but my hands are not in any position to accept such negotiations." "Why not?" "As you found out, my wife and child require me at home and not at the spoils of war. I must return to them before they set forth fear for my absence." Brack smirked. "Name your price, and I shall give it to you. I desire a man of such strength to be among my men. With you by my side, Silion shall fall to pieces, and Zion shall again be victorious." "And if I refuse?" Brack walked toward him and crossed his arms. "Refuse, and remain a prisoner. Eat from the leftovers, and I shall send word of your death to your wife and child. I give you 3 days to give me an answer, Tanner." He picked up his sword and walked out without chaining him. Hayden understood the tactic the man was playing at. If he made it to appear that he trusted him, Hayden would cave into his offer. But the truth was, Hayden wanted to burn this palace hall down. He needed a plan, and he had only 3 days to figure out his escape.
Deep end, we're alive, living life underwater. Let's spend all we've got getting buzzed. You pretend you're a god, I believe I'm a soldier. We play hide and seek till you draw. Love ain't got nothing on me, bad boy. Running, I'll catch you on my own, boy. No, love ain't got nothing on me, bad boy. I'm great for playing that only because.
My lady, do you honestly plan on giving yourself to that old dying man this evening? Anna asked as Lilac adjusted the brooch on her chest. The thought had occurred to her, and only because the entire castle hall had heard the man claim to bet her. She had no choice, and she had to do something about it because 9 months later, they were expecting an heir to be born. What do you think I should do? The man has gossiped enough to ears that I am probably forming a babe inside my womb. You heard what Brack said. If no child is delivered, it is a sign from the gods. My lady, I have a suggestion for you. What? Lie with another. Not him. Lie with another whose looks resemble slightly to that of your husband's. If seed is taken to womb, a babe shall be delivered, and no one will ever know if coin is laid heavily in his hand. Lilac thought for a moment, and then she turned around to face Anna with a smile. Why hadn't she thought of that brilliant idea? It would be the perfect solution to her problem, and she wouldn't have to give herself to that old man. She needed someone who wouldn't speak a word about this and someone who would remain hidden. Suddenly, Lilac raised her head up and turned to Anna. I need to visit the prisoner cells. Getting a ticket here was not easy, and it took Anna's seductive eyes to get a guard to open the wing to them. Cloaked in a black dress, she slowly made her way through to the very last dungeon, where the guards told her the foreign man was kept. When she arrived, she found him sleeping on a table. His hands were chained. She took the key the guards gave her and opened, walking in and slowly closing the door. It looked like the man was heavily drugged into sleep, for he had not made a sound since she entered. Now, Anna had said the first thing she needed to do was seduce the man to get him to open up to her. But if the man was sleeping, how was she supposed to do that? Walking to him, she laid her hands on his hardened muscles, and inside she felt her heart skip a beat. This man was strong, very strong, and sure enough his air would be perfect. She looked up at his face and saw that he was more handsome in his sleeping state. Reaching for the buttons on his pants, she began to release them, and as she tried to pull his pants down, she heard his gruff voice. I have awakened to many things in my life, but never before have I been startled by such a sight wanting something so intimate of mine. Lilac gasped and tried to leave when he sat up, reaching for her and pulled her toward him. I thought you were chained. A mere lie to fool an imbecile. And Lord, behold me, the imbecile is you, my lady, the Duchess. She felt the fear enter her. Then let me go if you know who I am. One word from me, and you shall be at your death. He eyed her darkly and intensely as he stood up, towering a foot over her. His hold on her hand tightened as he pushed her against the wall and leaned down close to her. What were you trying to do with me, my lady? He asked. Lilac let out a cry and tried to shove him, but he didn't budge. She felt her cheeks hot as she looked away. Let me go. Why should I let you go when you have given me the greatest opportunity? Thank you, my lady. I apologize in advance for what is about to happen. With that, Lilac felt him lift her off her feet and threw her over his shoulder. Her scream echoed across the dungeon as he kicked the cell door open. She slammed her fists into his back, but it did nothing. The guards all withdrew their swords as he dropped her to a standing position and clutched his hand around her neck. If you stop me, I shall kill her, he warned. The strength of his hand around her throat made her gag, and the guards all loosened their stance as Brack came running into the dungeon hall, his eyes wide opened and sword ready in hand. "Tanner," Brack said, "let the Duchess go." The man smiled, and then he bent down to her cheek, giving her a soft kiss. "My name is not Tanner." "Who are you?" Brack asked. "The prized kill is an answer to who I am. Who do you honestly think you have had in your dungeon for the past few days?" "Speak!" Brack yelled. "You are my sworn enemy! What does that make me?" he cried. Lilac gasped loudly and screamed, "Sea lion!" She could not believe the man holding her was the greatest enemy she had been warned of. Hate filled her that she almost took her enemy's seed into her own womb. His grip on her tightened, and she gasped for breath. "Horse, sword, and if anyone follows, I shall hand over your Duchess without a heartbeat," the man said. "Now." "Give him what he requests," Brack said. The guards parted ways as he dragged her toward them, and when she locked gazes with Brack, the fear in the man's eyes was real. A horse was brought to them, and he threw her on top, jumping up behind her. He caught the sword thrown at him, and when the drawbridge opened up, she screamed out the one name she thought she never would. Her husband's. The evening sun was setting, but he was still miles from home, and Hayden wanted to get closer before he stopped to make camp. He was positive that by now Brack would have gathered a hunting party to save the Duchess. She had been quiet since he'd taken her, but he was sure that she was also planning her own escape in her head. They reached the grasslands a little after the sun went down, riding for near 3 hours. He got off, and when he reached for her, she swung her leg to kick him. He caught the ankle and pulled her off, catching her in his arms and then tossing her to the ground. He bent down and tilted her chin to look up at him. "Out of all the people in the world, I never thought you'd have guessed I was from Sea Lion," Hayden said. She spat in his face. "Get away from me, you dumb brute." He laughed and he shook his head. "Just hours ago you were trying to take my pants off of me, Duchess. And now you're turning cold, Duchess. We still have yet to have a conversation about what you were intending to do with my privates." He stood, as did she, and backed away from him. He watched her glance across the deserted lands, and then her gaze shifted back to him. "Where are we?" she asked. "Not home," Hayden said as he walked to gather wood for fire. "This is not your palace halls anymore, Duchess, so you will find that no servants or fine dining will be offered." She ran to block his path and gave him an ugly glare. "Return me to my people. Whatever you wanted will be given to you." Hayden laughed. "I already have what I want, Duchess. It is you in my hands. The city of Zion proved once and for all why I sent so many of my finest to take you down. You are all murderers and despicable excuses for human." "We? Have you seen what your kind has done? Your so-called king, who is an imbecile, I might add, has no courage at all and seeks to destroy lands that do not even belong to him for the comfort of his own greedy heart. You follow a warped king." Hayden smiled and reached out to grab her arm, pulling her close to him. "Duchess, I am the warped king." The gasp from her came so loud that he shoved her away just to save his ears. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked him up and down. "You? You are the king of Cylon?" "King Hayden," he bowed. "At your service." "You are a murderer!" The anger in him exploded, and he grabbed her again roughly and shook her. "You listen to me, Duchess. If we were to compare wounds, I would have far more than you since I actually am in the battlefields, unlike you who sits on her high throne watching from her mighty tower to see how many would fall to the ground. You are now a prisoner of mine, and I shall do what I see fit to you. Be grateful I haven't slit your throat." "The gods answered my prayers, for what I was about to do would have been unholy," she cried. "What do you speak of?" Her face crumpled, and then she dropped to the ground. "I hate myself." Hayden bent down and lifted her chin to look up at him. What were you planning on doing? Tears suddenly filled her eyes, and she pulled away from his hold. Nothing that need to be shared now. It was never fulfilled, so I should remove it from mind. He watched her eyes fill up with tears again, and then suddenly he understood. He backed away from her in horror and watched as she stood up slowly. Were you seeking to steal a child from me? He asked in shock. When she didn't answer, he reached out and grabbed her throat. Answer me! She gasped and then sobbed. Yes? Why? Did the Duke put you up to it? She shook her head slowly. No. I had yet to lay with a man, and he woke, telling the entire castle walls I had bedded him. A child was expected from this, and to save myself from having to lay with him, I was going to... She stopped talking. Hayden finished for her. You were going to steal a child from me and pass it along as his. That was before I knew who you were. I am glad that God stopped me from completing my mission. Smiling, he replied, You mean to say I am worse than that dying old husband of yours? I am surprised you are still untouched, Duchess. He must be blind to not see what he has before him. Or did he try and was met with a blade from you? My marriage was not of my own choosing. I would rather die than return to be his wife. Hayden smiled. Then die you shall.
Went down crashing in my own bed. There ain't no words when you're sleeping with shame. All out and yet still wide awake. There ain't no prayer when you're sleeping on nails. When words fail you and all that you can do is look away. Yeah, and the image in my mind is burning each other down. It's pain. If you could only say it's you, always you. And baby, I'm sorry too. I twist and I turn, babe, I'm lost in my...
The moon was out, high and above the grasslands, as Lilac lay on the cold ground beside the fire. Hayden disappeared, but before he left, he made sure to bound her hands and feet together. Her arms were stretched behind her to breaking point, and she felt as if her limbs would be ripped soon. He had made no notion of releasing her, and the lands to Zion seemed to become farther and farther away. What had she been thinking? The thought of stealing a child from him had been a last answer, and now she was bound to become a slave to her greatest enemy. She only hoped Brack was a good tracker, so she could be found. But if he was a good tracker, and she was found, it meant she would be returned to the Duke. Her every thought was against her, and she blew out hot air as she laid still. And that was when she heard the sound of paws against dirt, and turned to find a cheetah staring at her from the hidden trees. Oh, dear Lord, Lilac whispered. The animal had its tongue out, panting, ready to strike. She swallowed and looked around to find nothing but deserted land. Where the hell was Hayden? She tried to control her breathing as the animal began stepping out toward her. No, 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 she whimpered. She tried to move, but the ropes cut into her flesh. The animal stopped, and then suddenly thrust forward into a leap toward her. She screamed and saw Hayden jump from behind the giant rock to tackle the animal to the ground. The two were in a heated collision as the roar of the beast overpowered Hayden's grunts. She watched him grab the animal's head into a chokehold and with one swing cracked its head to the side where the cheetah lay defeated. Hayden came walking toward her, breathing hard and half naked, his arms covered in dirt and blood from the scratches the animal gave him. The wounds from his previous injury had reopened. He bent down and untied her, pulling her up to a standing position. Dinner is ready, he said. It suddenly dawned on her, and she cried out, Did you use me as bait? Smiling, he replied, Of course. I'm much too valuable, and you're my slave. She walked to him and slapped him across the face, anger fuming within her. She could have died, and he was all smiles from ear to ear. But what she did angered him, and he pulled her toward him, his fingers biting into her flesh. Try that again, and I will leave you to be food next time. Be thankful I am letting you feast with me, Duchess. If you ever lay your hand on me again, I will do something saved for your husband." Lilac laughed and ripped her arms free from him. "You will never have the chance. I would rather be fed to the stray dogs than lay with your kind." He smirked and replied, "So speaks the woman who is removing the buttons from my pants." Thank you very much for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be uploaded shortly. I'll see you in the next episode.
Red eyes, strobe lights moving across the walls. You're looking like a movie star, but I don't know just what you are. Seems like your type to be on the floor. You're looking for a kind of queen, the baddest one you've ever seen. You're shining bright as crystal, moving like a twister. Ooh.